Thank you, Minister. And by the skin of your teeth, Senator Polley, you have the final question.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Congratulations on your elevation to the position. My question is for the Assistant Minister for Social Services, Senator Fifield. I refer to the government's decision to axe the Dementia and Severe Behaviours Supplement. Is the minister aware of comments by leading Aged Care Services Australia CEO Mr Patrick Reid, and I quote, "This action represents the government turning its back on Australia's most vulnerable people, their families and the industry that provides specialist quality care 24 hours a day." Does the minister agree?
The Manager of Government Business in the Senate, Minister for Assistant Minister for Social Services, Senator Fifield.
Thank you, Mr President. I thank Senator Polley for the question. The decision that I took to cease the severe behaviours supplement for people with dementia wasn't one that I took lightly. But the situation that this government inherited was one where the previous government, in the last financial year, had budgeted for a scheme for $11 million applying to 2,000 people. Rather than the scheme, as designed by the previous government, applying for 2,000 people and $11 million, in the last financial year it was going to apply to 25,000 people, a slight overrun, Mr President, and it was going to cost $110 million, not $11 million, $110 million. And the projections for the next 4 years were rather than costing $52 billion, rather than costing $52 million, the scheme was going to cost $780 million. Rather than, let me repeat that, Mr President, over the next 4 years, the projections were that rather than costing the $52 million budgeted by the former government, it was going to cost $780 million, and in fact, over 10 years, it was going to cost $1.5 billion. This is yet another example, Mr President, of a scheme that was badly designed by the previous government. And it's important to emphasise, Mr President, that this was called a Dementia and Severe Behaviours Supplement. This is not the base funding for aged care providers who support people with dementia. About half of Australia's 180,000 people in residential care have dementia. This was for people with severe behaviours related to dementia. Badly designed scheme, serious cost overrun, and as a responsible minister, I could not sit back and do nothing.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering the question has expired. Senator Polley, a supplementary.
Thank you, Mr President. Is the minister aware of comments by the CEO of Age and Community Services Australia, Adjunct Professor John Kelly, who said that the government's decision to axe the dementia supplement was, and I quote, "more than tragic, and I think it's a travesty." Do you, Minister, agree?
Minister.
Mr President, I agree that the planning and design by the previous government was more than tragic. Absolutely. Mr President, it's important to put this in context. This is not a minor miscalculation. This was something that was designed and budgeted for $11 million for the last financial year by the previous government that in fact was going to cost $110 million. Over the next 4 years, let me repeat, the projection was not that it would cost the $52 million budgeted by those opposite, but $780 million. And over a decade, it was going to cost $1.5 billion. Now, this was not a situation of my creation. This is a situation I inherited, and it would not have been the responsible thing to sit back and do nothing. Mr President, I'll add a little more after the next supplementary.
Minister. Senator Polley, final supplementary.
Thank you, Mr President. Given the rising incidence of dementia in Australians, why is the government axing a supplement which provides a lifeline to those who need it most?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr President. And I should also remind colleagues that one of our election commitments, which we are delivering in full, is $200 million for dementia research. Mr President, it also bears repeating that the severe dementia behaviours supplement is not base funding for aged care providers who are supporting people with dementia. It was intended for a very specific and narrow cohort, people with severe behaviours in relation to dementia. I should also indicate, Mr President, that in the budget we actually increased the base subsidy to aged care providers by 2.4%. And indeed, we repurposed $1.1 billion that the previous government said to aged care providers you can only have if you enter a union enterprise agreement. We thought that wasn't fair, so we said to aged care providers...
Minister, pause. Point of order, Senator Polley.
Mr President, I'd like you to draw the minister
order on my
to
right.
respond and be relevant to the question. Why is the government attacking those people who are most in need?
Thank you, Senator Polley. The minister has 11 seconds left to answer his question. I draw the minister's attention to the question. Senator Fifield.
Thank you, Mr President. I am being remorselessly relevant to the question. Mr President, we said to aged care providers we would give them back that $1.1 billion.
Thank you, Minister. Time for answering the question has expired. Senator Abetz.